Sunday and
Wait
on
for
a
the chief to
sale.
call. Anyway, we're going to start right now,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you for all being here. It's going to be an informational meeting where when Chief Stevens calls in, that way there we can ask him and he can put us up to date on where we are now. I know they they posted the job description several weeks ago, and I believe the due date, he'll tell us exactly, is Friday the 23rd, if that's the same, if those dates jive. But anyway, and he'll give us an information on how many applied so far, and then from there on, what his staff will be doing, and then what we could do to go along with this as well, to keep this going. So anyway, right now, until the chief calls in, I'd entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of June 8th, 2023. I'm sorry, April 27th, 2023.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Motion made in second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anthony,
Yes, sir.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Okay. What the conversations I had with Chief Stevens, too, in the recent past, was he's going to ask us what we would like in a chief, so he could more or less gear his target as he's reviewing the applications with his staff, too. So that's one of the topics he was going to bring up. You have his number?
I don't have some.
Oh, okay. Excuse me, I can call, you can take over, okay?
If you need,
Call
yep.
to Chief Stevens to make sure he comes on, because there's another meeting coming in at, pretty soon.
Well, so maybe we should get some questions ready, if, what we want in the chief, some
Will they
basics.
open that, the bank up there yet, where your daughter works, have they opened their doors? Up there at the credit union, have they opened their doors yet up there?
No.
When are they?
Soon.
I know what I
On
want.
the town on that Walker.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, would probably be
I didn't realize, when you told me that sales,
dedication,
the building and,
commitment,
and it's got a lease. with
things
them,
of that
so,
nature.
You got a sweetheart deal there.
Doc, excuse me, the vice chairs.
Yeah, we just, we're looking at some of the requirements or something we'd like to have for our next chief, what some of the benefits that we could probably give him, or he could give us. So I think, I was just saying that maybe dedication would be something to look forward to, or long-term commitments would be a priority. Anybody else have any?
He's coming up. He apologizes, he thought someone told him at 8.
Oh,
No. Excuse me, Barney.
Oh.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so that's where we'll be going right from here. I just wanted to make sure that whereas the last time we all met was April 27th. So I felt as though we should have something now in the interim, and that way there we could find out where we are and where we can go from here. We can also ask him too, where did he advertise the job posting? How many applicants he has so far? And of course, the definite cutoff date. And then from there, what would be the procedure? Would he be interviewing all that applied, or just those that he felt as though would meet the requirements that we would expect here? Anybody have any questions?
No, my only comment is, I mean, the agreement that we had with them is that they've got to meet the requirements the basic requirements. If
Right.
they don't meet those basic, they're in the out pile.
Exactly, they shouldn't
So we
waste
don't,
anybody's
so
time.
that's,
Right,
so in other words, basically until, was the end of this month, I think, is the cutoff date.
yes, it is.
So whatever date that is, then at that point, I don't know, I'm sure that, I wanted to ask them if they, the ones they get now, I assume that they would be screening them. Not waiting
Right.
until, on that. I mean,
Right.
they're not doing anything but I would assume they're starting on the screening of those applicants that they've received up
Exactly.
till now.
Right. And that's a very good point, Doc. That's what we asked him to do during the interview process as well. And like I said, more or less not wasting anybody's time, not only theirs, but ours as well. So anyone that we would get or that he would more or less bring forth to us would definitely be above and beyond what we've asked. Anybody else?
Ask, what percentage of the applicants are meeting or exceeding the qualifications so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true, that's it, right, exactly, so this is a good time to, like I said, to get our bearings going too. Here's Chief Stevens now. Hi, Chief. Can you hear us now, Chris?
He's muted.
Oh, he's muted. Is he all set?
You talking to me?
Yeah, oh, there you are. Okay, you were muted at first, so we didn't know if you were hearing us. Or we couldn't
I
hear you.
apologize.
Oh, okay.
And I apologize to all of you. For
Yeah.
some reason I had it at 2 o'clock, and I do apologize.
No problem, I already explained that. Thank you so much, Chief. If you can just give us an update on what has been so far, because I was mentioning to the committee members, the last time we were all together, of course, was with you, and that was on April 27th. So if you can just give us an update on what happened since then?
Most surely. So the first thing we had to do was put together the job announcement. I worked with the chair, I worked with Kristen HR, worked with the chief, we went back and forth, worked with the town administrator to put together our job announcement. And the job announcement was driven a lot by the Milford Article 32 of your bylaws, which kind of dictates what has to be in there for qualifications. So that drove a lot of the announcement itself. So right now, the announcement is out. It's out through IACP, it's out through Mass Chiefs, it's out to New England Chiefs. We pushed it out to various areas to try to get as many people as we can to respond back to it. The closing is 4 o'clock on June 23rd. All resumes and applications are going to HR, go right to Kristen to HR. She is the central depository for all the resumes and for all of the applications. At the 23rd, at the close of the day on the 23rd, she will send them back off to me, and then we get to start looking at those resumes. What I suggest we do as a working group is allow myself and the other chief to go through the resumes that don't fit the minimum criteria. Your bylaw was very specific about certain minimum criteria that had to be met. So always when we do chief processes, we always get people that will put in a resume that does not meet the minimum qualifications. So my suggestion to the board would be let myself and the other chiefs go through the resumes, remove the ones that don't meet minimum qualifications, and then supply you guys with the resumes so we can go over the resumes and see what we have for resumes moving forward from there. After we do that, after we've gone over the resumes, the next step is going to be the written response to written essay questions. So the candidates that are left in the running will be pushing out essay questions that they have to respond back to. That gives us a chance to look at how they write, their written style. It gives us a chance to see how they respond to questions. What I'd like to do with there, and what I normally do is, I have questions that I can talk about the policing, I can talk about being a chief, I can talk about getting questions, and I can kind of tag team with some of you about specific questions that apply to being a chief in your particular community. But I don't live in your community. So what I would like to do is, through the chair, ask the board, the panel, to put together some questions. Even if you just bullet me out some different topics you'd like me to create questions on, or you can create questions, but I would like to get some questions from you. Knowing you've got a chief on the board, you have a member of the police department on the board, you have a retired deputy chief on your board, you have select board members, you have members of your community. Your board is very diverse, and what I mean by that is you represent the community. So I'd like to hear, as representative of the community, what you would like me to ask as in written responses to questions. Some of the written responses, if I don't use the written responses, the next phase is the oral board questions. I might take some of what you give me and use it during the oral board phase if it doesn't fit into the written responses. So I can use them either way. Again, questions that pertain to your community, questions about the police department, questions about different issues that happen in your town, quality of life issues in your town, anything that you think would be pertinent that you believe as board members representing the people in the town that you want me to ask either in a written format or an oral format. I would like to get those as well. So that, once the resumes are done, the pace picks up a lot faster. We advertise for 30 days, but once the posting is done, once June 23rd hits and we collect all of them, the pace it goes a lot quicker. So that's when I'm going to need you guys to come into play. The other thing I need to do is I want to be able to speak to a couple of you one-on-one and tell me from your point of view, from where you are in the community, what you want to see. The current police chief plays a role. The deputy police chief being in the past plays a role. The current member of the police department who represents the board from the union point of view plays a large role. Community members, you all play a role in this. So, I'd like to work through the chair and identify a couple of you that I can actually call and have a one-on-one conversation. Pick your brain, if you will, and you can tell me, Russ, really, this is what we want in our community, or this is what we don't want in our community. So those ideas, those are things that I need too, and that better helps me when I train the assessors up for your community, I can talk to them. This is what the board is looking for. These are what the town is about. These are the concerns of the board. These are the concerns of the town. So I know it's a tall order, but those are the things I really need. I need questions, some ideas from you guys for the essay questions, and ideas for, again, you might give me some, and I may use some of those for the oral board questions. And then through the chair, if I can identify a few people that I can call, I would appreciate that too. I'm going to, tonight, Kristen's off. Tomorrow, I'm going to email Kristen. What I want to do is I'm going to send you a copy of the posting so you can actually see the posting itself. And then I'm also going to send you some questions to each of the board members too, to all of you. And I'm going to do that through Kristen. She'll email you out these questions. And this is a questionnaire. Again, you being in the position you're in, I'm going to be leaning on you heavy about what you want to see representing the town. So I'm going to send you some questions. These are 6 questions, and just fill them out for me. Tell me what you want, and these are very easy questions. And the last question is a catch-all question. If there's something particular that you're interested in and you want to see, you throw that in the last question. So I'm going to get that to Kristen to send out to you. I will have that to her tomorrow. It's actually done. I know she's off today. I'm not sure when she comes back. She's away, and I will hopefully get those out. I'll get those out to her, and maybe she can push them out to you on Monday. It's going to have my email address, so you can send them right back directly to me. So Kristen will push them out. There'll be a copy of the announcement, a copy of these questions, and then I'll send them to Kristen, and Kristen can push them right back. It should be out with my email, and you'll push them right back to me. I'm also going to list my phone number, my cell number on that. Call me. If there's something particular that you want to see, call me as well. I'm 24/7. You can give me a call. Weekends, holidays, nights, it doesn't matter. Call me. I know I'm talking fast, but I think I think Paul said we only have a limited amount of time, and I want to open it up to you guys.
Sure. Anybody have any questions for the chief? Yes.
Yeah, I had to. Chief, thanks for your presentation. I wasn't here. My name is Greg Allegretto. I wasn't here at the presentation, but you did a fantastic job. So I just had 2 quick ones. So the job posting how much of the job description that we had worked on was put into the job posting? Are those 2 different things?
From Article 32, the bylaw?
Well, so we came up with a job description early when we started meeting, and then, so I don't know if Kristen had passed that along, if some of that was used for the job posting that you did.
So what I did was I took your job description, I took your bylaw. A lot of the information from your job description actually was in your bylaws. So I took the bylaws in your job description and morphed it into a job announcement,
Nice.
The job announcement. And when I send it to you, you'll see it's that the requirements really came from your bylaws and your job description, because that had both. There were a couple that conflicted, between your bylaw and your job description. There was a few that conflicted that I worked with Kristen on and we ironed out. I think you'll see that the qualifications that are in here and the job description that you guys made is in here. And also, what we do is the candidates will be supplied with a job description as well. There'll be when they send in their written application as well as their resume, they'll also be supplied with a copy of the job description. So they'll fully be aware of what the job entails.
Excellent. And the other, so I'm to understand that you don't know how many resumes or what the type of resumes have come in yet, Kristen, because they're going directly to her then. So is that?
The resumes go directly to her. When I spoke with her Tuesday, she sent me an update on Tuesday. As of Tuesday, there were 8. As of Tuesday. The description closed, the job announcement closes June 23rd. Now, I will be the first one to tell you, being a police officer of 39 years, and the cops in the room will tell you the same thing. Cops are last minute, and no one wants to reveal their hand and put in for this. You'll see a heavy flow of resumes come in towards right about 3 days before the closing. That's when you're going to see your most. Because cops don't want to expose themselves or show their hand just yet. And cops we're last minute. That's what we do.
Amen.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm good.
Doc? Doc Heller?
No.
Nothing? Okay.
Chief, when did the post go out? May 19th?
The post went out. The post went out May 23rd. Well, it was sent out. It was sent out on May 19th, but like IECP, Mass Chiefs put it out the next day. I want to say IEPC waited till the 23rd, but I was adamant about always doing it for 30 days. So the 23rd was the official, let's say, the posting date.
And again,
And that gives us.
just to reiterate, so all the resumes are going to be sealed and sent to Kristen, and then on the 23rd at 1600 hours, whatever is there is going to be what is then in turn sent to you?
Correct. And then what I'll do is, there's 2 options, and I leave it to the chair of the board and to the board members. There are 2 options we can do here. I can go through the resumes with the 2 other chiefs, senior chiefs, with like-sized departments, and we can cull the resumes down, and then we can present the resumes that are left. I can go through the resumes, and I can eliminate just the candidates that don't meet the minimum qualifications, and then give the resumes to you and work with you on the balance of those resumes, and we can decide who's going to move to the next phase from there. So there's really 2 options there. And done it both ways with towns. There are some towns that will say, Chief, you go through the resumes. We want to see the resumes that you think are based on what we do, based on how we go through the resumes and the grading rubrics that we use and make sure they meet no qualifications. We don't want to see the candidates that are left standing. We don't want to have to go through them. And there are some towns that say, you know what, Chief, why don't you just get rid of the ones or go through the ones that don't meet minimum qualifications so we don't have to debate over those. And then just give us the ones that meet minimum qualifications and we'll talk about those and have a decision about who we want to move forward from there. And that's really up to you, to all of you, to decide how involved you want to be or what role you want me to play in that. So I give you 2 options on that.
Chief, would you suggest that that happen before or after you do the written essay and the orals?
Well, at some point, the candidates, I want you to see the candidates, and that could be on the day of the assessment when we actually do the assessment, the final phase, that you could be there in the audience or in the room listening to the candidates and go that way. But you should also know who the candidates are. We can hold the resumes back, and the final candidates that go to the assessment center will do it. We can do it any day of the week to include a Saturday. We do it, I mean, you had a beautiful location. We can do it at I think it was the COA that we were at before. We can do it in any area. We can set up tables to put the committee in that room in the back, and we can give you resumes of all the candidates that are coming before to do the assessment center itself. That way you can see the candidates. We can set it up, and there's another option for you. We can also set it up that after we're done doing the assessment center, that when we're done with the candidates, they go in front of you, and you get to interview them and ask them specific questions. It has to be the same questions of every candidate, though. You can't ask one candidate certain questions and not ask the other the same questions. So we can hold the assessment center. We can do the resumes. We can do the oral interviews, the written essay questions, do the assessment center, and then have them meet with you. Because of the size of your committee, I would break you down into two different, what should happen, and we do this with Kristen, break you down into two different groups. And the candidate, when they're done the assessment center, they go in front of group one. Group one asks them specific questions. Then when they're done with you, they go in front of group two. Group two asks them specific questions. And that gives you for lack of better terms, hands-on time or face time with these individuals. You would get their resumes then, and you could read their resumes, and then you can ask them questions as well. So there are several different options. It really depends, as a board, how involved you want to be, how much you want to be involved in the process. So I kind of leave that up to you. I can give you ideas, and I can give you options.
Chief? Go ahead.
All you, Doc, go ahead.
Chief, just where do you start doing background checks? After you've cleaned out the ones that don't qualify, that don't have the minimal requirements, we get rid of those. Do you then do background checks on the rest? And then after you've had the background checks, would forward the ones out of that group that you feel meet the qualifications that we find out? My thing is, in the previous search that we had, that was kind of the way that we did it at that point. Everybody does it differently. I'm just trying to ascertain as to where this initial background check comes in before we start seeing resumes.
So by law, you cannot do a background check until you give them a conditional letter of offering. Now, we do what we call informal background checks. When we get down to, let's say we get down to 5 candidates that go into the assessment center, before we bring them in, we've already made informal calls to their police department. We've already Google searched and we've already contacted other people. Some of these candidates we've already seen before. And some of them I've already seen in other assessments because we've done so many of them. Some of them I'll be able to tell you this person has some issues in their background. My strong suggestion is we stay away from this person. But a true background, once you guys decide that, in your bylaws, you've got to put so many, 3 to 5, I believe, in front of the board. Once they select a candidate, they get a conditional letter of job offering. And in that conditional letter, it's going to read that upon your successful completion of a background check, a psychological, and a medical exam, you'll be offered the job. So in order for us to do a full background, we have to sign a conditional letter. But that doesn't prevent us from doing the informal background, which, Doc, to your point, we'll do prior to. We'll do it prior to they get down to you, because the last thing we want to do is put a candidate in front of the board, your board, let alone the select board, that has a history or that has things in their background that would not present well for the town.
Okay. Well, that answered my question. So you'll do a basic background initially, and then I understand the following. Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Chief, with the, so let's say, just hypothetical numbers, you get, 40 people apply for the job, you review the 40 resumes, let's say, you're able to whittle out 10 because they just don't reach, the criteria, if you will, they don't meet the minimum requirements. You have 30 left. At that point, do you submit the essay questions to all 30? And is that incorporated into the oral board phase as well? So in other words, you would send the 6 questions to these 30 candidates, and then we pick from there to bring in, or is the essay questions just part of, let's say, the 10 that we whittle down to bring in, or the 6 to 10 that we bring in when we do the actual assessment?
So the way we do it, good question, the way we do it is, let's say to your numbers, we get 40 applicants, and we whittle those applicants, those resumes down to 30. We then send the 30 the same the written essay response questions. All 30 get that. Then we review those. We have a grading rubric for the essay questions. Then we whittle that 30, let's say, down to 20. Then we do the oral board interviews via Zoom, because some of these candidates are coming out of state. So we'll do the oral board interviews via Zoom. Now, the oral board interviews, what we'll do, if there's something in the written we ask them different questions than we did in the written, in the oral board, we ask them different questions than we did in the written essay questions. Now, but if there's something in the written essay questions that sparks our interest, like some response that they put that is something that we want to probe a little deeper in, we think that they didn't answer the question, they skirted the question, or something they wrote which doesn't sound right for someone being chosen for a police chief, or their written response wasn't appropriate for a police chief, let alone a police officer, we'll dig down onto that in the oral boards. But the oral board questions are separate questions. So that's like what I said to you at the beginning, that I would like to get as many, from your point of view, anything that you would want me to ask them, or anything about the town that you think would be good that I could work into an essay question. And even if I can't work it into an essay question, I can work it into an oral board question. Because as you know, some questions are easier to answer orally than they are in a written format. But we do it both ways, because we are looking for the writing skills and the oral presentation skills, and this gives us a chance to actually see both of those. Now, so we went from 40 from the resumes, 30 into the written responses, and then from 30, let's say we cull it down to 20, we're doing the oral boards on, the oral interviews. And then from 20, we'll cull the list down to so many that actually go to the assessment center itself. Each one is a separate, distinct process. And what that does is it gives us a real, by the time I'm done, and by the time you guys are done, you'll have a strong understanding of the background of this person, where they're from, and definitely for me, I'll pretty much know everything about them, because I'll be the one conversing with them throughout the whole process. A lot of times we tell the candidate's big question is, well, are you going to be calling my employer? So what I tell them is, I'm not going to be calling or contact your employer at this phase, but I will let you know when I'm going to be doing an informal background, and then when I'll be doing a formal background. But at this point, I always tell them, not at this point, but if they make it past the written essay responses and the oral board, they're going to the assessment center, they really should tell their employer that they could be contacted by a member of public safety consultants in reference to their employment. Because and not for nothing, but as a seated chief and the deputy and anyone who's in policing, anyone in the working world, we want to know when someone's leaving. And recruiting's hard right now for police officers throughout the country. So, it's only fair to tell the boss, and you owe it to the town and tell your boss that you're in the process. But we'd rather the candidates tell their bosses, not have the bosses find out through the grapevine.
Right.
Good. Chief.
Okay.
Please.
Chief, just a question. I don't know how close you can give it, but just what are we looking at timeline here? You get the resumes on the 23rd. You're going to go through them. You send out the written questions. How much time do the candidates have to get that back? And then how much time between that and the assessment when they come in for the oral? Just, we're not going to hold, just kind of a rough idea for us to have a sense of where, time-wise.
Sure. So closing is on the 23rd. I'm looking at my calendar now. Closing is on the 23rd. That's when they have to do at 4 o'clock. Kristen will push those off to be on Monday. I can, hopefully by the 26th, Kristen can get those to me. And I can get those, I just got to get the other chiefs together. We can do it via Zoom. I just got to email them off to them. I should be able to get the resumes gone through and culled down, depending on how many, hopefully by the 29th. So 4 days after I receive them, I should be able to get through them, hopefully, by the 29th if I get all of them by Monday. So let's say by the end, on the long term, let's say by the 30th I've got the resumes.
Okay.
If I have the resumes done on the 30th, then I will be sending them the written questions on the 30th. They'll get 4 days to respond back to the written questions. 4 days. It's plenty of time. They'll have plenty of time to do them. So they get 4 days to respond back. So if I get them out by the 30th, or even by Saturday the 1st. Hopefully I'll get them back by Tuesday the 4th or the 5th. That's the written responses. Then once I get the written responses, we have to read them. That does take a little bit of time because I do not limit them on the amount of, I do not limit them in their responses because I want them to write.
Yeah.
I want to be able to see their written communication skills. I want to be able to see their thoughts when they put them down on paper. So I do not limit them. So some of them are longer, and some of them, you know, for lack of better terms, are saw ship saying type of thing. That doesn't bode well for them, but it makes it easier read for me. So once I get those done, and again, that takes time, I'll set up their interview. So if I can get their interview started the following week, depending how many left in the program, in the process, we can normally, each interview really runs approximately 45 minutes an interview. So we try to get 4 a day done, coordinate with the other chief to do 4 a day. And we try to bang them out every, you know, we do 4 one day, 4 the next, 4 the next, 4 the next until they're all done. Not knowing how many candidates are going to be left in the running, it's hard for me to gauge that, but I will say by the 3rd week of July, maybe on the outside, if we have a lot of candidates, the 4th week of July. The assessment center itself, I'd like to do, my goal is to do the assessment center sometime, I'm looking at Saturday the 5th or sometime during the week. And, you know, I would like, if it's possible, to have as many of the board members there to either meet with the candidate afterwards, or if the board can't be there, we can set up an evening during the week that you guys could meet with the candidate as well. The only issue is the candidates, some of these candidates may be traveling from out of state. I don't know that for certain right now, but they may be coming from out of state. So if the board can't make it on the day we do the assessment, that's fine. Kristen can work it out that we set it up for a second day, that the candidates come before you. By that time, you'll have a strong knowledge, you know, you'll have you'll have seen the candidates' resumes that are coming before you. You'll have seen all this. And you'll be able to spend time with them and you'll be able to ask questions. So that's another thing too, that's an option. If I can't get all of you together, I realize August is vacation time, but if I can't get all of you together at one time on the day we do the assessment, we can do that and you guys can do it on a separate day or a separate evening. You know, and someone else who may want to be in this room for this would be your town administrator as well, just to be present. You know, the town administrator is going to be is in the food chain, if you will, with the board. You know, before the board of selectmen, you got your town administrator who's going to be working with the chief as well. You know, I always recommend that the town administrator be present to watch. He is not on the board, but he should be there to watch anyway, my recommendation. So long short, I would like to get I'd like to get this all wrapped up for you by the first weekend of August, if I can really get plugged and get moving on it. Again, it really depends how many people put in. That's what drives the numbers in the time.
Chief.
Chief, you talked about the culling process. It's easy to understand when people don't meet the minimum qualifications, but say if you have a lot of resumes that meet the minimum, do you rank them based on minimum and preferable? And could you explain how you would call that process, and would we be involved, or would that just be, you know, you guys?
So here's the question that I have for you. The way we do it, you'll have some candidates that'll put in for this that may be other chiefs in other jurisdictions. Well, if you're a senior chief in another jurisdiction, you have budgeting experience. You should be up on post requirements because of the meetings that we go to. You should know, there are certain things that you'll know as a chief. Now, if you're a sergeant and you put in for this, then that's a problem. Now, I'm not saying sergeants can put in for yours, but if you're a sergeant or you're a very junior lieutenant, now for your minimum qualifications, though, it's very strict. A minimum of 10 years of law enforcement experience, including, you know, when it goes into things, minimal education. And again, you'll see this, Chief, So masters agree with major coursework in police administration field, 15 years of progressively responsible experience in law enforcement and crime prevention work, rank of lieutenant or higher. So the way we did this, it's very specific based on the job description and based on your bylaw, Article 32. Residents within the surrounding area, the town or area within limits set forth by law. Bilingual ability, especially in Portuguese and or Spanish, training in social work or mental health intervention. Those were all things that were part of your job description as well, was part of in your article. So they're very strict. So the likelihood of getting a sergeant that puts in for this, we would automatically disqualify them because they don't meet minimum qualifications. The candidates you are going to get is a lieutenant and higher. So you have lieutenants, captains, deputy chiefs, and chiefs. So those ranks. Masters agree with major coursework in police administration related field. So if you have a bachelor's degree, you've been disqualified. So there are certain characteristics and traits that are going to be there that some people are not going to be able to be filled. And, that's preferred, but a minimum requirement, a bachelor's degree with major coursework in police administration, a minimum of 10 years. So that's the minimum. That gets you in the door. But if I have 5 people, and then your bylaws also spoke about preferred qualifications. So you have minimum qualifications and preferred. So if I have 5 people that are preferred and 3 people that are minimum, then most of the time your preferred qualifications are going to trump out your minimum qualifications and may be disqualified. I don't know if I answered your question, Chief, or not.
Yeah, you did.
When I send this to you with the questions, my questions for you guys, you'll be able to read it. And I don't know if, and I'm sure all of you have a copy of your Article 32. And I can ask Kristen to send you a job description. I'm sure all of you got the job description too. But I'll send the job announcement. It's very clear. It's really specific in scope, Chief, about what we're looking for, what you guys are looking for as a town. It will limit a lot of it. Because the way that you created your job description and your bylaws, it did a lot of the work for me. It limited the scope of the search. You're not going to get sergeants. You're not going to get senior patrol officers putting in for this because they don't meet minimum qualifications. I say that. You'll still have sergeants that will put in. And that's the way it is. I always have sergeants that put in for these positions, but they don't meet minimum qualifications, so they get excluded.
I think based on our job description, if I read it right, for the minimum and preferred, minimum, they did allow sergeants to apply in certain other things. So to your point, Chief, I think that the job description allows sergeants and whatnot to put in, but I think, again, to your point, if you have, 10 guys of a preferred category that, meet the preferred, they'll trump essentially the minimum requirements, the folks that put in that do have those minimum requirements.
Yeah.
We also want to make sure, though, some people with minimum requirements might be more appropriate, or they could be potentially better. Just because a guy's got a master's doesn't make him a better police chief. So
Yep.
I don't know if we want to hold off until the orals are answered or something like that, because they might be a better candidate than someone with a master's that has 15 years. You never know. I don't want to disqualify people because maybe they don't have the 15 years.
Right.
So that's just my point of view for that. I think if they come in, as long as it's not overwhelming, then I think whoever meets the minimum requirements should get a fair shake, whether it's off the, if you get disqualified after they're written, then it's something else, you know what I mean?
Right.
If they don't meet that, but.
Yeah, if they meet the minimum, they don't have to meet the preferred, but if they meet the minimum, they'll still be in the race.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
that's what I want to make sure
Right.
of, so. Yeah.
But to the chief's point, then, we have to figure out, so if you have 2 minimums that are outliers and 5 preferred, now what are we doing with the minimum? I think we have to obviously decide as a board, if we have 1 or 2 people on that minimum scope that really stand out,
Oh, sure.
they don't get trumped by the 5 preferred,
Right.
so to speak.
Providing they're
So to
better
the
than that.
ranking, to the chief's point, the ranking might not be terrible because, okay, maybe that guy with a minimum ranks number 6 compared to the preferred that rank in the top 5, but it may still be worth a look.
Sure it is.
And the oral board and the assessment,
Yeah.
because if that guy shines.
He may shine.
You'd hate to disqualify.
That's true.
Yeah.
A diamond in the rough.
Well, if I may. I certainly, excuse me, Stacy. For me, I certainly speak for myself, but any local candidate that meets the minimum, I want to make sure that they get a fair shake.
Sure they would,
In this
yeah.
whole thing. Sorry, Stacy.
No. Just so I'm clear, I mean, that's just one of the criteria we're looking at, right? So if they meet the minimum, they're still getting the write-up next level, right? Everybody who meets minimum is getting the,
The assessment.
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, then it's like, all of these things drive their overall ranking. So that's just one data point.
Yeah.
And I think to the ranking list, when we get down to the 20 oral, is anybody on this board involved, or is Kristen from HR involved, or at the step to go from the oral to our assessment center?
I think that's his question to us, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, Chief, am I clear? Isn't it?
So it-
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. So we can do it a couple different ways. When we do the oral boards, the oral interviews, when we do the oral interviews, we rank each candidate. We have a grading rubric that we use for that too. There we rank each candidate. And so now at that point, we've seen their resumes. We've got their written essays back, and then we've done oral interviews. So at that point, we're starting to formulate the candidate, what the candidate's about, how, what they're like. We did a recent assessment not that long ago, and the person it was a border state. The person lived out of state in a border state, and their intention was not to move into Massachusetts. Well, that's all well and good if the town accepts that. And, up in the North Shore, if you're in a border state with New Hampshire, that's acceptable, but that may not be acceptable in the town of Milford. So when he said he was adamant about, no, I'm not moving into state, talk to the town, talk to the board says, no, that's a deal changer. Although we're not requiring this person to live in the town, we still want them to meet the statutory requirements, and we want them to live in state. So brought it back to the candidate say, thank you, but no thank you, I'm not moving my family. Okay. So those are some of the things that we see too.
Chief, how far out
Now-
did we push this?
Can who? The candidate push it?
Last question of being cursed.
Yeah, how many states did we advertise this in? How far out did we push this? Just New England, or?
No, we pushed it out to IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police. So not only is it to every state in the United States, it's also out of country. So it's gone wide.
Okay.
Excuse me, to the members too, being told we have to leave pretty soon. So I was going to say, if you do have any more questions, maybe next week we can do the same thing again. It all depends if we, like I said, if we decide that we have more questions for Chief Stevens. Maybe next week, someday that's agreeable to all of us, we can do the same type of a meeting.
Now, I'm gonna, and real quick, I'm gonna have Chris, I'm looking at your job description right now, and I'm also looking at your Article 32, and the minimum was a bachelor's degree with major coursework in police administration related field, a minimum of 10 years of aggressively responsible experience in law enforcement and crime prevention work, including 5 years of command or supervisory capacity, or any equivalent combination of education, training, and experience which provides the required knowledge, skills, abilities to perform the essential functions of the job. So that's your minimum required. Now, your preferred required
If they want to come in,
is your master's degree with 15 years of aggressively responsible experience in law enforcement and crime prevention work of lieutenant or higher. So it does have the ability to allow a sergeant in. Now, what it says is years in a command or supervisory capacity. So there is an argument to be made that if you're a sergeant, you're in a supervisory capacity. Every department is a little different, though. Sergeants in Milford could have a different role than a sergeant in New Salem, Massachusetts, or Pelham, Massachusetts. So we look at that too. But it doesn't exclude your sergeants for being part of in the process itself. I am more than happy after the after, if the board so chooses, I'm more than happy, and I'll make sure I'm on time, and I do apologize, it's not me, not like me. But I'm more than happy to, after we get the candidates and the final numbers, I can shoot you all an email of how many candidates. I can go through Kristen and push them out to you, how many candidates we have. I'm more than happy to meet with you guys again if you want to meet again. It's really up to you. I'm more than happy to do what you guys feel comfortable with. At the end of the day, I want to make sure you're involved as much as you want to be involved. And I want to make sure I get you the answers, so when the public comes to you, in the case of the chief and the representative from the union and the deputy chief, they're going to have cops coming to them and wanting to know what the process is or how it's going. So I want to make sure I have the answers to you.
Very good.
The only thing that you ask, Paul, is that you cannot release the names of any of the candidates.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
I know that. Thank you. Chief, thank you so much for your time. Really, it was a fantastic meeting, and you had a lot of information for us. Thank you so much. And thank you for my committee members for your questions, too.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
See you
Commissioner.
now.
Nice night.
You too.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to be one of the folks that he calls.
I know that. Yeah, I already had it in my mind.
Yeah, I'm happy to be one of those folks.
And anybody else.
So anybody on the end.
What to do? If you guys can give me an email so then I can get it back to him?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Very good. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second? All in favor? Because this guy here is trying to throw us out.
Thank you.